How many of us, if we were Lehigh, would have moved? How many
Yeah.
of us, if we're comfortable, would have said, oh, okay, now we're moving to Ohio? What?
Sometimes we forget about that. We kind of lose focus on the fact that we are restored Israel. Like, this is the restoration of Israel in the same way that the Jews have been restored to Palestine.
I think what you said is so powerful. We could be translated now. We could have Zion now. The Lord is trying to do that with us now. He was trying in their day in 1830, and about 200 years later, he's still trying. Welcome here to Zion Media, and we have a new show for you. That's right, Come Follow Me with Lance and Shane. And what I want to add to that me part is AT. Come follow the meat. We hope to be giving you the meat here as we jump into the Come Follow Me. And if you've seen our other shows with Lance, you know he gets deep into the meat. And I know a lot of people have said, I don't feel like I'm getting the meat. I'm just getting the milk. So if you're watching Come Follow Me's and you're looking for a spot where you can get some of maybe the deeper stuff as well as milk, like we'll give you the milk too. You got to be able to swallow the meat. So we'll give you the milk too. But we're going to start doing this every Monday. So you can tune in to our Come Follow Me every Monday here on Zion Media with Lance and Shane, and you can watch the Come Follow Me that is for that coming Sunday. So today, Lance, what are we going over today?
Let's see. So we are on the April 21 through 27th, right? So this is Doctrine and Covenants 37 and 40. And I was just telling my wife how, like, I really love the Doctrine and Covenants because it's kind of like me. Like, it is so scatterbrained, right? There are not very many like consistent, cohesive thoughts that go through the Doctrine and Covenants. It's just all over the place. Like my wife's like, why does it have to be so wordy? And it's like, well, it's just throwing in as many allusions as possible. It's like, for some reason, that style is that, like, the Lord in that tone of revelation just wants to pull in things from every other scripture. Like, almost every verse is some kind of allusion to the Old Testament, the New Testament, the Book of Mormon. And that's how this lesson is as well, right? And so I love it because we get to kind of go through the church history, but then it's just, we're alluding to so many things in the ancient church to try and tie together this big tapestry, which is almost indicative of the restored gospel itself, right? It's like gather in one to tie in all the ancient dispensations and try and weave them together into one kind of singular final thing, which I love. I just think that's the coolest part of the Doctrine and Covenants, and will be a cool part about these studies that we'll do together is we'll get to pull in so many other scriptures and other ideas and see how we can kind of weave them together into a lesson.
Yeah, and it feels like the Lord is like, okay, we're going to try and start Zion now. Like, this isn't a future event. We're going to try and do it now. So the Lord's trying to do some things here in the Doctrine and Covenants. And what we're going to cover is where they win and where they fail. And one of the things that's interesting to me as I read the Doctrine and Covenants is the Lord gets upset sometimes, whether that's at Joseph or at somebody else, and they get chastened or whatever. And we're going to jump in through all of that, but also just kind of follow along the history. So let's jump in, Lance. We're going to jump right into the manual itself, talk about that, and then dive into the scriptures.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's both just kind of, we'll go through here and throw out whatever ideas we get. I'll kind of start here. The thing that struck me kind of at the very beginning, I've just thought about this a lot when it comes to this narrative of the saints moving from New York to Ohio to Nauvoo to Salt Lake. And then, of course, we know that Salt Lake is not our home either, right? We're supposed to go back to independence. Is the idea that we are like strangers and sojourners on the earth, right? And it was the same with Abraham and with Israel itself, right? Going from Mesopotamia to Israel to Egypt back to Mesopotamia. Same with Christ, right? He started in Israel, had to go to Egypt and then back to Israel. And then some people say he went up to Mesopotamia or the Far East for a little while and then back to Israel. It's like no one gets to sit down and enjoy, they can't sit on their laurels. Like the saints are always being moved. Like we are,
Why why do you think why do you think that is? Because in this, they're now sent to Ohio. It's like, okay, go to Ohio. Why do you think the Lord is constantly moving uh his people around?
yeah. I
Do
mean,
you know?
I I would think like from a secular perspective, people would just be like, oh, well, everyone was just moving west to try and get land. But when you look at the gospel narrative, that's not true, right? Israel was the same way. In fact, the Nephites were the same way, moving from the land of Nephi to the land of Zarahemla to the land of northward. It's like God is always just constantly moving his people.
Well, and that's how the Book of Mormon starts, right?
Yeah.
Lehi is commanded to move. And I as I looked at this lesson, I thought, is the Lord just a Lord of tests? Is he just like, I want you to do this? And he's seeing and testing to see, you willing to do this? You willing to do this? And if we pass all these tests, then he's like, okay, cool. Now I'm willing to give you this land of promise. But how many of us, if we were Lehi, would have moved? How many
Yeah.
of us, if we're comfortable, would have said, oh, okay, now we're moving to Ohio? What? Like, how many of us would have done that and I guess followed what the prophet's guidance, what he was getting from the Lord? And I often wonder if the Lord is just testing his people to see if they will not complain, not murmur, and follow the voice of the Lord.
Yeah. And maybe just like what you said, like not get comfortable. Like he doesn't want us to get comfortable. I mean, this idea actually fits into what we're gonna hit in Doctrine and Covenants 38 when we start talking about the city of Enoch and Zion. Like he doesn't want us to be comfortable here on earth. He wants us to know that we are this isn't our home. Like earth is not our home. Paradise is our home, right? The millennium is our home. Heaven is our home. Like this is just like this temporary place.
And so we even have to be willing to move spiritually. So sometimes, like this is talking about moving physically, but sometimes we have to be willing to move spiritually. Sometimes there's doctrines and new things that come out that stretch us spiritually, and we have to be able to be willing to move spiritually to a new place as we learn new doctrines. And that can be just as hard as moving from one city to the next.
Wow. Yeah, that's really good. The idea of not getting comfortable, resting on our laurels when it comes to what we know as well, right? And isn't that like that's what the gospel is all about? That's awesome. So think about this when it comes to your conversion to the gospel, and when we go out in missionary work and we're trying to convert people, people often like get so comfortable in their religion, even right. They're in this whether it's Catholicism moving to Protestantism, and Protestantism now being challenged by Mormonism, being like, hey, you know what? Maybe this comfortable gospel that you've gotten used to over the last 500 years, isn't it? You know, God wants to constantly push us, in our where we live, but more important, like the way that we believe, the way that our level of righteousness, our idea of what Zion is.
Yeah, and the Savior, like, again, is a great example. He went out, he found 12 guys and said, "Follow me." Basically, leave whatever you're doing and follow me. He went to Nicodemus. Nicodemus couldn't do it because Nicodemus was comfortable. He didn't wanna make his wife upset. He didn't wanna make the other leaders of his church upset. And I feel like as I listen to our modern day prophets and apostles, and I look at what President Nelson's doing, he's trying to do things like, okay, we're going to 2-hour church. Okay, we're doing this different. Okay, we're doing this different because he's trying to say, hey, these are tiny changes. But in order to create Zion, it's going to take big changes. And are you going to be willing to do that? I mean, imagine this day, Lance. I mean, we go to the temple. We raise our arm to the square and we say that we will give everything we have, do have, will have to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for the building up of the kingdom of God here on the earth and the establishment of Zion. Can you imagine being called in and asking to give your 401k up? And the church says, yeah, we're going to be building Zion. We got $500 billion and we want your 401k. Like, they might not be asking you to move physically, but that's a big move. And so I just think we are going to be challenged spiritually. And what the Doctrine and Covenants is teaching us in these early days is they were challenged physically. I really feel like they were challenged big time physically. I don't know if we would have been as good as them in being willing to jump from place to place to place.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes we have that in our personal life. I don't know about you, have you ever had the Spirit kind of tell you, hey, it's time to move, or hey, it's time to move on from something that's comfortable, like your business, your job. There's so many things that in our life where I think God makes those same challenges to every one of us, whether we're moving physically or whether we're moving emotionally or spiritually, or maybe golf, the big one would be health. Think about people who suddenly get this new phase of their life where they're confronted with health problems or something that's completely new. Um, so yeah, I mean, I like this narrative because I think it really is inspiring. Um, Israel is kind of the underdog always throughout history. And I love having a narrative, in the gospel where it's like always pointing out this underdog and saying, hey, what, this underdog, the whole point of it, like God is doing it. God is doing it in your life. It's just like He's doing it in their life. And the point of it is to make you a better person and to lead you to like this Zion, this salvation.
Right. Okay, let's jump back into the
Yeah, let's move on. So 37, just has to do with that same narrative of moving to the Ohio, moving westward, and then 38, we jump into some really interesting concepts that I love. The first one that really stuck out to me was here in verse 7, right? So this concept right here where he says, Verily I say unto you, my eyes are upon you, and I'm in your midst, and you cannot see me. Um, that's kind of powerful. That's kind of wild. For me, that just stuck out, the idea that God dwells like in this other dimension, right? And He can see us. And we use God as kind of this archetype of the entire church in the spirit world, right? This entire echelon of higher beings, um, which Christ is kind of like the head, the archetype, but it's millions of them. It's the whole church of the firstborn, the church in heaven. And they see us continually, and yet we don't see them. And God, how crazy is it that's so huge? It makes our lives so difficult that we have to walk in faith, that we can't see God. We can't see reality. We're these children in the dark. Um,
and this Lance reminds me of a scripture in Hebrews chapter 13 verse 2. And as I go there, I often think about this no matter where I'm at, no matter who I'm interacting with. I think about this. It says, um, maybe it's not 13 verse. Oh, yeah, 13 verse 2. Be not forgetful to entertain strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unaware. And and it makes me think again, in the temple, God sends or asks Jehovah to send Peter, James, and John down to go check on Adam and Eve, not in their true character or in their true identity. How many times are people in our midst that are these angels and we don't even see them or know?
wow.
And they're just coming to check on us to see how we're responding to them. So it's like every person I see, I view them as though they're an angel. So I do weird things and say hi. And I look for opportunities to hold a door open or to serve wherever I can because I'm like, I could be entertaining angels unaware. I could be entertaining Christ and I could be totally unaware. And I think it's easy for people to, oh, you're in front of your stake president or some leader of the church. How would you behave then? Well, how do you behave when you're just around strangers? Do you behave the same way? Because you should. And I haven't always been done that, but I'm starting to understand that there are beings of light around us. There are these angels around us. There are these other people. And Jesus said it the best. He said, when you've done it unto the least of these, my brethren, you've done it unto me.
Yeah. I mean, it's so crazy that we believe in this gospel that believes in what the world would just consider foolishness, right? Like just as bad as aliens. It's just craziness that we believe that there are angels. That Joseph Smith has an entire section of the Doctrine and Covenants where he's telling people, well, let me tell you how you can tell the difference whether this is a resurrected being or adjustment of a spirit of adjustment made perfect. Try and shake their hand, and if it's a spirit of adjustment made perfect, they won't try because they'll be like, hey, I don't have a body. Like that's crazy. That's crazy talk. And yet, I think that that's true. Like that's my faith. And I think there's so many people in and out of the gospel that they really believe this. Like we are this like blind body of people on earth surrounded by higher intelligence in multiple dimensions, in multiple worlds, right? And we're like a bunch of little kids who know nothing, but yet these higher beings know so much more than us. um, I mean, why do we have to be in the dark? What do you think? Like, why on earth does God put us down here in such a completely ignorant state if there really is this connected, intergalactic, interdimensional world around us?
Well, when you think about being willing to move, like, yes, that this is the first time in the scriptures God is saying, hey, we want you a big geographic move to Ohio. What about when we were in his presence? And he says, hey, I want you to move to earth. I want you to take an assignment. And if you've read Doctrine and Covenants section 77, you know what earth is. Um, it's in a telestial realm, and we know Satan is the god of this world. So this isn't the easiest, most glorious, most wonderful place. And he says, "Hey, I want you to move to earth. It's uncomfortable here. We've forgotten everything. We don't even remember our name, for heaven's sakes." But we knew that if we would take the assignment, we would become more like our heavenly parents. We would grow exponentially. And if we managed our probation well, we would come back better than when we left. And it goes back to your point of being willing to do what the Lord asks us to do, even though it's uncomfortable. So can you imagine these early saints? They're just starting. The church has just been formed. The Book of Mormon's just come out. And the Lord's like, yep, time for everybody to move to Ohio. Like, what about the farms that all these people had? What about their real estate? What about all of that stuff? Like, it's like, what? My kids are in school. And we just joined a religion. Like, do the religions today, like, I don't know, Lance, are you familiar with any religions today that are telling people, hey, we want you all to pack up and move?
Into the wilderness,
Yeah,
out of the woods, basically, a new city, a new
yeah.
salvation.
Yeah, so we need to be prepared. Who knows what's coming? Like Lance said, could they ask people to move to Missouri? I mean, my whole life I grew up thinking that. I'm now of the opinion that I'm staying right here. So I hope they don't ask me, but who knows?
Probably happen, right? Right.
I mean, do I have to be willing to listen if the Lord says so? I guess, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's wild. I mean, verse 8 kind of continues on that same vein, saying that day soon cometh that ye shall see me, right? Even though right now we're totally blind. And know that
Wh-
I
What
have.
is what is soon? He's like, how often does the Lord use the word soon? Now, this is in 1830. And I believe that the Lord was attempting to establish Zion, and he wants to come. And we're gonna, as we get into the Doctrine and Covenants, we're gonna find out that there's a lot of crap that goes down, and things get, I think, delayed.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, the day
But
of the Lord comes for all of us when we die, right?
that's true.
But as a church, we've got the times and the seasons, and we know that the time is not far distant.
Yeah.
Uh,
Now, I like what it says here. The veil of darkness shall soon be rent. Do you feel like, because I feel like, Lance, right now, that this might be coming to fruition, that that veil of darkness is beginning to lift. Are you seeing that? Is that happening more so now?
I mean, just look at what has happened since this was written. I mean, think about 1820, the very beginning, really, of the Industrial Revolution. And you think about as far as the veil that covers the earth that keeps men in ignorance. I mean, so much has happened as far as globalization, global governments, global knowledge, the internet, and now AI is going to bring that up one more step. Like the idea of this veil of darkness that keeps humanity, and gosh, okay, this this just makes me think of books like The Law of One and WASP, things that I've talked about in other videos that
Now,
they're
there's a
so
lot of people who are gonna watch this and be like, "What did he just say? The law of what?
yeah.
And Hawaspy?" So,
And
hey, if you haven't watched our other videos with Lance, go watch them, but there's some other works out the law of one has greatly impacted my wife's life, that it's helped her draw closer and better understand the gospel of Jesus Christ. Now, it's a book that is not an LDS book. Um, it's a channeled work by somebody else, but it helped my wife. The Owaspy is another channeled book in 1888. Some dentist started getting a download, and it's not all true, but there's some truth in there.
yeah, and they're not books that I don't think I would ever talk about in church, but they give such crazy ideas of what we were just barely talking about. Details of this intergalactic, community that there are these higher dimensions and that there are all these beings and they know each other and they're communicating with each other. And then we have like these lowly earthlings that don't know anything, that are just encapsulated in this veil of darkness. And one day we'll break through that veil and we'll like join this community of interdimensional beings, of higher beings. And we'll see that like, oh wow, we were so ignorant. We knew nothing, right? We think we're so smart now, and we're just barely starting to, get to the outskirts of our solar system with our satellites, and we still haven't even been to Mars with a human. I think anyway, I'm trying to bring this into my life as far as how this can, the idea that we're not, we're just ignorant right now, right?
Yeah,
We're
and verse 8 goes on and talks about how we I don't know what the opposite of ignorant is, but how we begin to know. And it says, "And he or she that is not purified shall not abide the day." So we need to be purified, Lance. What are some of the things that we need to be doing to be purified? And on our channel, we've talked about the baptism of fire. I mean, what are some of the things that we should be doing in order to purify ourselves so that we can be in this day when the veil is rent and when the all this truth begins coming to the earth?
it seems like for me, it's all about intention, right? And it's almost like there's something within ourselves that unlocks the connection between us and God. And God, there's so many times that I have felt so distant from God. And and sin is what makes us feel that distance, right? And yet it's not on his part. It's not like he suddenly is like putting up a hand, speak to the hand because we're wicked. It's like when we do certain things, when we behave in certain ways, we create that distance between us and God. And so then in order to fix that, we have to do that same thing. There's this intention of turning inward and kind of getting our heart right to where we can burst through that veil and suddenly see this interconnected world of spirits and higher beings, resurrected beings, the celestial kingdom, all of that, be able to connect with it, even though we still can't see it. Yeah, but still the question is always for me, like, why? Like, what is the purpose of being in such a dark and dreary world and being like in this isolated state? What does it teach us?
Uncomfortability, right? Like it's similar to what the saints are doing here when they're asked to move. And it's what we're doing here. This is uncomfortable. There's if Lance, if I said, "Hey, I got a deal for you. I'll give you $5 million." but what I want in exchange is I want your memories. Would you do that deal?
Yeah, no way.
No, but we did. Every one of us did that deal when we came here to earth. We gave up our memories in order to get one of these bodies because we knew, so we gave up everything really because we knew that this experience for us would serve us in a way that we can't comprehend or understand. And the Lord is trying to teach this in the Doctrine and Covenants when he's asking the saints to move to all these places. He doesn't even say why. He just says, move, go, trust me, it'll be good. And thank goodness they do because we kind of know, and we'll get into it. They go to Ohio, and in Ohio, some of the greatest revelations were had. Um, the first temple was built. I mean, there's a lot that's going to happen by them saying, okay, Lord, we'll move. And I think there's at this time, I mean, we're talking December 1830. There's probably less than 100 members of the church right now. This is a very young group of people that
Yep.
that are following. I mean, how old's Joseph Smith at this time? What, 25?
How
Can you
how
imagine?
That's pretty wild. I mean, could we picture our ward, like just picture just your ward as if it was like the first ward of the church, and well, they were at the threshold. We were going to see by 1840 that God is saying like you could see my voice, like you could be redeemed even now if you were just ready, right?
Right.
Even now.
Right.
Like if you could really put yourself in those shoes and realize that these words that were given to them at that time apply to us. That like any ward, if they were ready, like even now you could see the face of the Lord. And I like in verse 4, um, anyway, I like this concept too that he pulls into. He said, I'm the same which have taken the Zion of Enoch unto mine own bosom. And verily I say unto as many as have believed in my name, for I am Christ, and in mine own name by the virtue of the blood which I have spilt, I have pleaded before the Father for them. Right? Crazy. He's like pulling Enoch.
He's trying to do what he did with Enoch. He's like, "Hey, I think I can make this happen with this group of people and do what I did with I'm telling you, he's trying to build Zion now. And an agency's the wild card here because he's like, we can do this, but let's see how you guys use your agency. And he's trying to prepare them because the Lord's like, I want to come. And even the Lord says, I don't know when I'm going to come back. Only the Father knows. But he's like, I'd like to come. Now sounds like a good time. We've just appeared to Joseph Smith. We've given him the Book of Mormon. Let's take this small group of people. Let's create Zion and let's make this happen.
Yeah. I, I love like the cross reference that it gives there under Zion in verse 4. The section where it talks about the city of Enoch, right? And the whole section here is like if you're not one, you're not mine. Be one, be mine. And so in the book of Moses, when it talks about Enoch, that was like their defining characteristics, right? They had become one. Like
One heart, one mind.
exactly. And that is what makes people ready to see the face of the Lord, or to even be taken up. Like in, what is it, in Joe Smith translation? It's in DNC 45 where it says, um, and this people wrought righteousness and obtained heaven and sought for the city of Enoch, which God, this is talking about the city of Melchizedek, right?
Right.
For the city of Enoch, which God had before taken, separating it from the earth, having reserved it unto the latter days or the end of the world. How crazy is that?
Wow.
Like, once again, this idea that there is like this whole, like, I mean, this is like Marvel comic book stuff where we've got this inner city in Africa, or we've got this celestial city and we're all blind to it. But yet, if we're like, that's what we're seeking for. That's what we're seeking for. And then when we
So
die, we can go to it, or even if you could be righteous enough, you could be translated into it.
so one of the things that as I've thought about Zion, I mean, we call our channel Zion Media. Like, I'm reading the scriptures. The Lord wants us to build Zion. So I'm like, okay, how do we do that? Like in my head, I'm like, I'm one person. How do I do that? And the Lord says, you have to first build it in your mind. I'm like, okay. So we've heard a lot of talks about let virtue garnish your thoughts unceasingly, think celestial. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to build Zion in my mind first. So I had this concept in prison. I'm like, it's a very negative place. I'm going to see if I can be positive and build Zion in my mind. Can I build Zion in prison? And then um, I did. I was able to build Zion in my mind. Then my next step was, okay, can I build Zion with a spouse? So I get out, I get married, and it was during COVID, so we just got married civilly. And my wife and I sat down and said, let's see if we can become of one heart and one mind. So intentionally, for the last 4 years, we chose to not get sealed in the temple until we both felt that we were of one heart and one mind, and we, between the two of us, had created Zion. So we haven't been in an argument at least for the last year. That doesn't mean we didn't have arguments before, because we did. And we were trying to figure out how to work with one another and how to live with one another. And over the past year, we have intentionally become of one heart. I can think of something. I can literally think of, oh, I wonder what dinner is tonight. And then literally I'll get a text, hey, this is what I was thinking about for dinner. So we've somehow been able to connect our minds together. And now I'm like, okay, I feel like, and we just got sealed 2 days ago in the Leighton Temple.
Oh man, congratulations.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
A really cool experience for me, because and not to discount the first time that I did this. This is my second go around. Takes me a couple times to get things right. But I just did traditionally what we do. I'm like, go to the temple, get married for eternity. Yeah, that sounds great. Um, and I wasn't thinking through how to create this Zion. So now I'm like, okay, my wife and I, now we've become Zion. And so it starts that way. So I know we all want to build Zion. I know we all want to do it. And so at least the way I've been able to process through is, okay, build it here first, build it with my spouse second, and your family, and then let's see if we can start building the city of Zion, like what Enoch did. And we would need a bunch of families that have built Zion that are of that one heart, one mind, because that's what I want. I don't, this suffering that's going on and this dog eat dog world. I mean, I want, I think we can do it. I think
Yeah.
we can build Zion. And now the church has a $500 billion. So I would say if there was ever a time, this is a pretty good time to start doing it.
Yeah, you would think, right? I mean,
That's what I
I've been
think. Hey, if you're watching this, church, my vote is we start coming up with a plan to build Zion. Now I have seen some interesting things happening. Um, and just in we had a special state conference, and one of the things that they were talking about was the law of consecration. So um, it's the first time I've been at a special state conference where they're talking about getting prepared to live these higher laws.
Man, you know what? There's so much to unpack there. I'm thinking in my mind, I'm on the other side of the aisle when it comes to things just like, man, I've been struggling the last month or two. Um, I have not been getting along great. And I tell you, I've had so much anxiety, so much just like feeling like darkness is just collapsing around me. Um, so in my mind, thinking about, I've had so many periods in my life where things have seemed so peaceful and so unified, and I felt more one with my wife and more one with my family. Whereas and then now I feel like everything's just and horrible just the last little bit. So how do you get, is there any clues in these sections here? Like how do you get from point A to point B? Like if you're in a point in your life where things are crumbling, where things are seeming rough, how do you find that unity? You know?
So so I personally think it starts with service. I'm gonna give you an example. I'm falling asleep last night, and I feel this, like, bottle being pushed against me. I look over, and it's my wife's big water bottle, and I'm about falling asleep, and I know what she's doing. She's like, "I need some water." She doesn't wanna go get up and get the water, and at first I'm like, "Why don't you just" in my head, "Why don't you just go get yourself some water?" And then it was like, "Serve her." Oh, cool. let me grab that. Let me go get that for you. Instead of saying, hey, I was almost asleep. What are you doing? I'm like excited to go and serve my wife. And and she was so appreciative that I got up, like, when I gave it to her, she's like, "I'm so grateful for you. Thank you so much." And so, um, I'm not saying that's the secret, but it certainly helps. And I think if we can serve our spouse, um, that helps create that oneness. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode here on Zion Media. This episode is brought to you by Thrive Life. Now, if you haven't already got your spring sale, go do it today. It ends today at midnight. So go get your sale. And here's how the sale works. If you spend $150, you get 15% off in May. If you spend $300, you get 20% off in May. And if you spend $500 this month, you get 25% off your May order. Listen, that's free food, and we all should be prepared and be stocking up for our food storage. Plus, at Thrive Life, it tastes incredible. If we can sacrifice for our spouse and go fill up the water bottle, um, that can help us create that oneness and that unity. And it's hard. I failed. I mean, my first one, I failed. I failed at it completely. It was a disaster, and, yeah, I failed. And then I had 62 months to sit and think about how I failed and how I would have done things differently, right? And I don't want anybody to have to go through what I went through, because you don't need to. You can fix it right now.
I guess, I mean, verse 24 and 25 echo exactly what you're saying, right? Where it says, let every man esteem his brother as himself and practice virtue and holiness before me. And then it hits the important part. And I say unto you again, let every man esteem his brother as himself. It's like the first great commandments: love God, love your neighbor as thyself. It's like this idea of selflessness, of putting away the self and treating other people as you would want to be treated. That really is the key to being one. That's
Well,
why we would serve.
and the law of one, like, helps you understand, and this is where my wife came to. She says, I would, as she read and finished the law of one, she says, I'm never gonna be mean to you, because if I'm mean to you, it's just like me being mean to myself.
Oh man, that's a rough one. That's actually a dose of hard medicine to take. Like when you think about, still all the negative thoughts that I've been putting out towards somebody else, someone that made me mad, those are really coming back at myself. Like if at some level, right, the world is one and we've like under this illusion of separateness where we believe that we're separate, but in reality, where we can't see, we can't see the Lord, but if we saw the Lord, we'd realize we're all one. Just like when he came to the Nephites, one of his first things he said is, I and the Father and the Spirit are one, right? And he says it over and over. And I'm one with the Father and the Father is one with me and you need to be one with me. And he says the same things in an intercessory prayer. So it's this idea. And maybe that is the endowment that we learn about in the end of this section where he talks about I'm going to be endowed in high. This change of perspective where we truly realize that we're all one, that there is a unity, and that this is an illusion, this separateness that we have, and that we have to treat each other as we want to be treated. We have to treat each other as one in order to overcome the veil, because the veil is just like this separation. Like the veil is the illusion that we are separate from each other, the illusion that we are separate from God, the illusion that we cannot see God, when in fact he was here all along.
Right.
What is
Well,
what?
I love that service is right in there, in Doctrine and Covenants section 38. So that at least is one of the keys to having the veil be rent. And the Lord is teaching that in this section. As again, as I read this, the Lord is like, I'm preparing this people for Zion. He's planning on creating Zion. That's the Lord's objective. These are the first works of the restoration. Let's redeem Zion. Let's create a city of Enoch here. And he starts talking about things that they can do or they're going to need to do in order to create that.
Yeah. Yeah, let's jump down to 38 and 39 because these are pretty great. So after talking about how people are going to have to sell their farms, yeah, just like we were saying before, they can't be comfortable. They've got to keep moving. There'd be strangers and sojourners in this world. Then he says, and if you seek the riches, which it is the will of the Father to give you, you shall be the richest of all people, for you shall have the riches of eternity. And it must needs be that the riches of the earth are mine to give, but beware of pride, lest you become as the Nephites of old. And again, I say unto you, I give unto you a commandment that every man, both elder, priest, teacher, and also member, go with his might and labor with his hands, and prepare to accomplish things I have commanded. Uh, let's say, it was 38 that I liked really quick before that, where it says, think that all things are preserved, and when men are endowed with power from on high and sent forth, all these things should be gathered into the bosom of the church. Well, so much crazy imagery there, right? So trying to build again on the idea of being one. He's saying prepared in the bosom of the church, just like he's always saying that, we'll be brought to the bosom of the Father. So here the church is being made kind of a type of God himself. That is like in the same way that God gathers people into his own bosom, the church should be constantly gathering people into its bosom, right? And then once again, I see the symbolism of like pregnancy in that, right? The idea of coming into a bosom. That could be like holding someone, but to me, I kind of just like picture a baby like in the bosom of their mother, and so then that is kind of the ultimate of that unity symbolism again. That if you're not one, you're not mine. This idea that there really is no separation, right? It's crazy symbolism when you really kind of draw it out. The idea that a child and their mother at one point, they were as one as you can get, really, right? One of them completely dependent on the other, um, literally in the bosom of the other. And that now, after you're given birth, and we see that symbolism all over in the scriptures too, the kingdom of God, is the man child that's born out into the world, into the separateness. But then it reverses that symbolism for the idea that once you form Zion, and once you create some kind of a high enough standard of unity among yourselves, then God will bring you back up into his bosom, right? Almost as a mother, like taking a child back one with themselves, right? And what is it that keeps us from that? Pride,
Yeah, and he warns us, he gives a promise that this people can become very rich and very prosperous. Now, we know that that certainly wasn't the case for the early saints. They were poor, they struggled. So this promise wasn't delivered on at that time. It could have been, and maybe they made decisions along the way that prohibited them from achieving this blessing. And we know Zion wasn't formed or created, so we know they fell short there. But are we the fulfillment of this prophecy today?
well, hopefully will
Um,
be soon, right?
yeah, I mean, I'm telling you right now, um, the church, very wealthy. The membership, pretty wealthy, doing pretty good.
In the United States, at least.
Yeah, in the United States. And
And is that a
what
blessing
is
or
it?
curse?
Yeah, what does it warn us of here? I mean, it's like the Lord knew this was going to go down. And so he gives a warning right there. And he says, but beware of pride, lest ye become as the Nephites of old.
Yeah. I mean, do we
And
even have to look any further than the U.S., United States of America, to see an example of that?
yes,
The
and
richest
I
country
mean,
in the world, the pridefulest. I mean, things are going to hell in a handbasket, and we're so rich. We're so rich. Like I saw the statistic recently that the United States, I think, has like 3% of the world's population and like a little over 25% of the world's purchasing power. Like, how
that's
crazy is
crazy.
that? Isn't that
Yeah.
crazy? And is it helping us found Zion? Like, is the U.S. Zion? I mean, we've had kind of a stint of really probably the most peaceful. That's why I think so much money has come into the U.S. is because of our peace and our unity and our predictability and the stability of our markets. All of that boils down to like that the U.S. has done a good job as a Christian nation of creating like a Zion, essentially, right? A very like stable, cohesive, unified government and society. And now we are getting so prideful, just like the Nephites of old, that it's just all going back and forth, left, right, Democrats, Republicans, so much instability. What a great lesson for us in the church and for us in our wards and for us in our families to kind of be like, well, is money the answer? If money was the answer, I mean, the U.S. would be there. We'd be forming Zion instead of being on the brink of civil war almost, it seems like, or at least on the breakdown of democracy. Um, I think we're in for a major humbling, just like the Nephites of old. And then our hope, I guess, would be that the church is going to pick up the pieces.
Yeah.
That as things get worse and worse, that we can be that salt, we can be that example, that we can kind of move in and how do we do that though? How do we if we want to actually make a difference, how do we do that in our
Yeah,
community?
we need to make sure as Latter-day Saints that we don't have this pride, that we are grateful for these. I mean, we are so richly blessed. I mean, I know you live in Cedar City. I live in Farmington. I don't lock my doors. I don't have to worry about somebody breaking into my house. I can walk outside and I can go over to a shopping center that is literally less than a mile away, and I can have all the groceries that I would ever need. I have the Apple store that's over there and restaurants, and it's like a little piece of heaven right here. And how do I make sure that I don't let pride creep in? How do I make sure that I don't view myself as better than somebody else? And what are the things that we can do to make sure that that pride doesn't creep in? And that's what we have to protect against as Latter-day Saints. And that's what the scriptures are saying that we have to protect against. And and if there is a sin that likely does exist in our church that is the most hidden of them all, it is pride. And I've been there. And I've had been filled with that pride. And I'm telling you, I was uh I was fortunate to go to prison because uh, that eliminated my pride real quick. And I
Yeah.
hope nobody else has to go to prison to have their pride eliminated.
Yeah. And isn't that like when it comes, whether it's an economic catastrophe, like will happen, we'll see happens in Ohio, right? The failure of Joe Smith's bank, or whether it's the coming probable economic catastrophe of the United States. It's sad that we have to be humbled and experience pain. Like, what on earth is that? That pain somehow brings us together. And I think it can actually go either way. It's like sometimes when things get painful, people become more selfish, more like protective of their own, more turning away the hungry and the rest. But it's this thing that forces you to choose. I think when you go through these really hard, difficult times and painful times, you're kind of forced to this decision where it's like, well, now you have to choose. Will you be that selfless person? Will you rely on others because you're forced to? Will you give to others because you're needing yourself? Or will you turn everything away and like let everything devolve into chaos and be part of that chaos?
Right. Okay.
Let's move on to the next 39. 40 is kind of a big nothing burger. So it's really just 38 and 39, section 38 and 39 in this lesson that are great. Um, but 39 has some pretty great stuff. And I like as we come down to verse 11, 10 and 11. These are,
And if I understand this right, this mission call to James Coville, he was a Baptist minister that joined the church and got called on a mission. And think of that. I mean, here's a guy that's a Baptist minister, um, recently joins the church, and it's like, boom, you're on a mission. Like that's nuts.
yeah, and we did our lesson earlier, right? Where we talked about maybe that'll happen in the future where that kid saw his little dream where they're going to start calling adults on missions. I don't know. I think that's in the future.
Yeah, and that could be one of those huge sacrifices where they call everybody home, all the current missionaries, and then they start reaching out to people like you and I, and they say, "Hey, we have a 6-month mission call. We have a year-long mission call. Hey, how much money do you make? We'll make sure your family's taken care of, but we need these kind of soldiers to go out there and share the gospel, and we need to be prepared." Like, are we gonna be willing to do that? Are we gonna be willing to be like James Coville, who just joined the church, was a Baptist minister, and then boom, get called on a mission? Leave everything, leave our family? And
Yeah.
I mean, that's how the early saints were doing it. And so maybe we were not asked to move our whole family, but maybe we're asked to move ourselves for a time to go share the gospel. And are we willing to do that? These things can happen.
That's what we should do these lessons and try and find some kind of a non-member to come and join us for them and see if we can like have these be kind of missionary type of podcasts that we do here. Um, yeah, I mean, I told you I had the experience recently of like the homeless lady that I tried to help out, and man, that's difficult work, but that's something we could all do better. Trying to, I mean, so look at here in 9, the same thing as he said. Nevertheless, um, that was seen great sorrow, for thou hast rejected me many times because of the pride and cares of the world. Same pride that he's talking about in the last section. And behold, the day of thy deliverances are come. Of thy deliverance are come, if thou wilt hearken to my voice, which saith unto thee, Arise and be baptized and wash away your sins, calling on my name, and you shall receive the Spirit and a blessing so great as you've never known. And if you do this, I've prepared for thee greater work. Thou shalt preach the fullness of my gospel, which I have sent forth in these last days, the covenant which I have sent forth to recover my people, which are the house of Israel. I really like those verses. So the things that really stick out to me. First is this is 1820s. This is so early on.
1830.
Yeah, sorry. And there's so much emphasis on this idea that this is all about the gathering of Israel, right?
Right.
And that's kind of wild. It's like through all the Middle Ages, I don't think there was a lot of religions that were saying like we are Israel and we are trying to gather Israel. But that is kind of crazy, right? Like that. Sometimes we forget about that. We kind of lose um, focus on the fact that we are restored Israel. Like this is the restoration of Israel in the same way that the Jews have been restored to Palestine and they're going through their restoration and they're trying to build their physical national state, right? We are trying to build this spiritual state of Ephraim, of the northern kingdom of Judah. Um, and as we go out, like our temple is the gospel. Our temple is, um, help me out. I'm trying to say here, but
No,
there's so much.
I know what you're saying, and this is a really powerful statement that he's saying here. He's like, which are of the house of Israel. He's calling us of that house of Israel. Yes, I know that we're also referred to as Gentiles, but it's saying to James here, go and gather this house of Israel. I'm calling you, number one, I want you to be baptized, join the church, and do all that. Then I want you to go on a mission and gather Israel right away. He didn't have to wait a year. Or he didn't have to wait for this. It's like, get baptized and start preaching. We're kind of funny today. We're like, okay, now get baptized, wait 12 months, and then you can go on a mission. Or get baptized, wait 12 months, and then you can get endowed. At this time, it was like, get baptized, and here's your mission call, and we want you to go to teach this, having them just been taught themselves. And the mission here is to gather the house, to recover, not gather, to recover. And that's an interesting word. What does that mean? Recover my people? So that means they're somehow wandering down here on earth, which is the telestial kingdom, which if you read Doctrine and Covenants section 77, you'll find out where we are. We might be in a place called hell.
Right.
And
Celestial kingdom.
he's saying, recover my people. Somehow my people have ended up in earth, in this telestial world, in hell. And through the gospel of Jesus Christ and the preaching of gospel of Jesus Christ, you can help recover my people.
Yeah. Yeah. The concept of scattered Israel being the same as the concept of fallen man, these same themes that are woven throughout the scriptures. And I think what I was kind of getting at before too is I love this symbolism where it's like the dispensation of Abraham, we had kind of this physical building of Zion, of Israel, right? Definitely from Moses, definitely from Abraham to the time of Christ. It was like a physical church, a physical nation, a physical temple. Everything was about building things in the physical. And then when Christ came, he kind of destroyed that. And we had the dispensation of the Gentiles for 2,000 years. And Stephen, he's saying like, well, the temple of God is not built with human hands. It's a spiritual church. It's not a physical church. And the physical all gets destroyed. Israel's nation gets destroyed. Israel's temple gets destroyed. All the physical gets completely destroyed. And we have this 2,000-year period of like a spiritual creation of the church. And so the Catholic Church, the apostate church through the dispensation of the Gentiles that just gets to rely on the Spirit and not on prophets per se, they're still creating the church, but it's like a spiritual creation, right? A spiritual gospel, a spiritual hierarchy. And then now we have this kind of final dispensation where we bring all that together and we need to build the spiritual equally along with the physical. And we see that even in Ephraim and Judah being restored separately. We've got the kingdom of Judah being restored in Israel, and everything is still kind of bent on the physical in that sense, right? They're trying to build the physical nation, the physical presence. It's all together, the physical temple. And then we have Ephraim here in America, and we're trying to do the spiritual first. And there's some spiritual in Israel and there's some physical here in America. But we're both encapsulating those archetypes that were already set up in the previous dispensations, and we're building the physical and the spiritual. And the promise that we have is that they'll both come together. That soon enough, we're all going to be doing the exact same thing. Like all things will be gathered in one. We are going to create the final temple in the New Jerusalem, Independence, Missouri, and they are going to build the final temple in Jerusalem, right? Rebuild the same temple that was of old and offer up their sacrifices, and we'll be offering up ours. And the gospel will come completely full circle together. And then we'll have these two nations that are both spiritually strong, which is what's really been lacking from all the previous dispensations, that fully spiritual groundedness of Zion, like that Zion that is within, the Zion that's in our heart, the Zion of righteousness. And once that's there, we'll build the physical Zion. And once you have both those aspects together, those nations will be so powerful that they'll be able to, truly civilize the world. Like what's left of the world to be every country brought up to a first world country, the whole world brought into that millennial paradisical state that we had back when the seed of Enoch was taken to heaven.
Right. And redemption of Zion. I mean, why do we use the term to redeem Zion? That word redeem means that Zion has fallen away and now we must redeem it. And who's we? It's us. It's the saints. It's those of the tribe of Ephraim that are called to recover, to gather, and to redeem Zion. And I would ask everybody, go back and look at your patriarchal blessing. Ask yourself, am I doing daily what my patriarchal blessing says that I'm here to do? Am I gathering Israel in my daily walk? Like, am I redeeming Zion? We need to begin to do what our patriarchal blessings say we should. So I would encourage everybody to go and do this. And I love the promise here that the Lord gives to this Baptist minister. Just in verse 12, he says, "And it shall come to pass that power shall rest upon thee. Thou shalt have great faith, and I will be with thee and go before thy face." I mean, the Lord is saying, you're going to receive this endowment of power if you choose to accept this mission call, and I'm going to go before your face. Now, I look at that and I say, the Lord will be so much a part of him that he will have Christ's countenance in his face, that when he goes and preaches this gospel, people will see Christ in him. And to me, this is, we don't talk a lot about this second comforter, but maybe that's what this is. He's like, if you'll choose to do this, I'm going to give you this power and I'm going to go before your face, meaning Christ sends that second comforter to be with this missionary on his mission. It's a powerful promise.
Yeah. Yeah. In verse 6 or 17 here, where he kind of draws on that same language and symbolism that we see in Jacob 5, the allegory of the olive tree. Um, the faithful laborers into my vineyard, that they may be pruned for the last time. Right. And remember, in that allegory, he even talks about kind of like what you're saying, that he sends forth um, many laborers. And I think that we can suspect from other scriptures that he's got the physical laborers here on earth, but there's tons of angels as well, right? That they're basically that this is kind of huge too, because as a ward and as a church, as we try and purify ourselves and become one, like the promise is that when we go to heaven, we will continue the work, right? Only we'll have more power in a way as angels in heaven. And so then as we purify ourselves here on earth, we become worthy to get the help of the church in the spirit world that we talked about before. And even the city of Enoch that is in like their resurrected state, right? They're higher dimensional beings, you could say. And as the scriptures we went over talk about, they can see us, but we can't see them, right? One day the face of the Lord will be manifest to us, and they are part of that, right? The Lord is just an archetype of this entire body of terrestrial and celestial beings in heaven that we have access to if we are purified. And I think that ought to give us solace. But man, it's hard to remember that. It's hard to remember that. Like I'm teaching myself here when I think about when things get hard and you have that business venture or that school thing or whatever that's going on where you're feeling so much insecurity financially or spiritually or socially or whatever. It's hard to remember that that someone's got you, that there is so much help available up there, but you just have to kind of pierce through that veil of illusion of separateness. You have to be able to like reach through that veil and realize, oh, there's an entire group of people there that we just can't see them. They're separated by a
Totally.
veil.
Totally, and we can call on them. I was watching Elder Holland, it just popped up on my feed, and he's like Elder Holland is saying, "Call on these angels to help you. Expect these angels to help you." And you can call out and you can I do this all the time. I look around like this. I'm like, "Hey, I really need some help here. I'm dealing with this. Can you send angels to go soften this person's heart? Can you put angels before me to help me with whatever I'm trying to do? Can you send angels to my children to guide their path as they go to school and navigate this world?" We can ask for those things. And there are angels that are waiting to help us. And I think the more we ask for their help, the more engaged they become. They're just waiting for us to, like, engage them. "Hey, put me to work. What do you need? I'm here. I'm hanging out. Like, what do you need? Just tell me what you need, and I'll go before your face, and I'll help prepare the way, or I'll help you with the things that you can't do." And when we exercise that level of faith, speaking to the unseen world, it's amazing what the unseen world can actually do to help us on our earthly journey.
Yeah, it's funny. We went and did baptisms as a family at the temple. We went to like both the St. George temples this last week. And there's so many like people standing around, right? You go to the temple these days and there are so many temple workers. And at least the temples down here like that, like just dozens and dozens. Like every single corridor has somebody standing there, right? And they're all dressed in the kind of their angelic temple veils, and it really made me think that, made me feel like, is this what Mormon heaven is like? We'd go there and there's just a ton of people standing around in their white gowns and they all just look lovely. But I think the takeaway lesson is this, like they're all just looking to help you. Like
Totally.
all they want to do is just like, how can I help you? How
Assist.
can I
How
answer
can I
any of
help?
your
Yeah,
questions? And man, it's hard when you're in the thick of things and you just don't feel like you're getting any help from heaven. Man, that gets difficult to really be able to understand that it's like, no, the help is there. And and it takes a lot of faith, I guess, and I'm preaching to myself again here, that you just have to be patient. That eventually that there are enough angels hanging around looking to help you, and they will come through. Um, but you just gotta be patient. And I guess I have a story here that man, this is a rough one. So I had this lady, and I'll probably touch on this quite a bit in the future, but I picked up this homeless lady and she was probably, I don't know, 65. She's pushing, I think she was 65 if I remember right. And she's just traveling on the side of the road, and it just seemed crazy. Like she had all this luggage, probably like 10 pieces of luggage. Um, and as I got talking to her, she just wanted to be taken like as far as I could up I-15. And as I got talking to her, it kind of occurred to me that it's like, well, what are you doing being homeless? I mean, you'll never
Can
social
can I
security.
rewind this story? Can we go to the part to where you saw her and the promptings that I wanna get to how you decided to pick her up, and then I want you to skip to this because I think that's a really important part of this story.
Yeah, I mean, it was on a Sunday, and I was in a bad place. Like I said, I've had a very like it's been a hard couple of months just 'cause I have these things I've been really, really wanting, really hoping for, and they're not falling into line. And it's been hard on me. And so I was having this time where I'm just feeling really depressed, like, nothing's going my way. Like, none of this isn't going to happen. Like, these business things are not going to happen. They're not going to go down. Feeling stressed, feeling like I have to move on from my job, feeling like real financial insecurity for probably the first time in my life. Uh, and so I was just really wanting help from heaven. And so I saw this lady, and I don't know, maybe in the back of my head, it was like, you know what? If I want God to help me, I need to help other people. And I'm pretty prone to pick up hitchhikers anyway, when they, especially if it's an older lady, and it's, you don't have to worry about getting mugged or something. This is just some old lady who's obviously needs a hand. So I gave her a ride for that. And there was a car. Actually, the reason why came off the freeway is because there was a car of some younger kids who were broken down. And so I kind of stopped and asked them if they need some help. And then I went back and got a pizza for them because their car had broken down. They're waiting for some help. So anyway, this lady was when I get back on the freeway, and I'm like, okay, I'll give you a hand too. So I'm trying to help people out as much, just to try and
Did you go out searching to help somebody, or were you just like, "Hey, I need to go on a drive and think," and
yeah,
and
I was
then you
just
just
going to
started
drive.
seeing these opportunities?
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. I had gone on a drive up into the hills. And so, and that always makes me feel better if I'm kind of like get out in the hills, this horrible rough road. But yeah, coming back, I see these people. I help these kids a little bit, and then I help this lady, and I get back into town, and after I've talked to her enough, it's just like, man, you could be having Social Security. There's no reason for you to be homeless. So I put her up in a hotel, and I put her up a couple days, and then I kind of go back every night and start talking to her, trying to be like, look. I can help you. Like, I know that you won't do this yourself, but I can help you. We can get you all set up. And I find out her ID has been stolen. She has no license. She has no birth certificate. She has no identity. She's totally paranoid. She's talking about these people who the government's always after her, and these people are after her. And I get the feeling like somebody's stolen her identity and maybe is collecting her social security or something. So she's in the hotel over the next like 2 weeks. I'm like going to the city offices, and I'm trying to apply to get her birth certificate back in New York where she was born. And I'm trying to get her social security set up, and come to find out she's a veteran. She was in the military for a little bit. So I talked to the Veterans Affairs people, and I'm trying to get her, because she has quite a bit of money from Veterans Affairs that she is, uh,
Do?
yeah, she is due. And man, I tell you, this was so depressing because I got all this stuff going. I got it all going. Like, we were so close. In fact, 2 days before her birth certificate arrived, and probably less than a week before she would have got this big check from Veterans Affairs, and she could have got Social Security. As soon as she had her birth certificate, we could get her a Social Security card and start getting her Social Security payments, like at least $1,000 a month. She freaks out. She has this total episode, and I tried as hard as I could to try and like walk through her and help her get past this paranoia and this fear. And she couldn't do it. She couldn't do it. She bolted. And I give her my number and everything because I can't physically hold her. I almost wish that I could have. Um, and I said, look, call me. Like, all this stuff's coming through. Like, you're almost to the finish line. We're almost there. You'll have a card in your hand that will give you food, that will give you money to get on a bus if you want to. You can still travel. And she just bolted. And I haven't heard from her since. I kept being hopeful that I'd heard. I haven't heard from her since.
Maybe she was one of those angels, um, and she went back to the North Country. So
She did. She was going north, and that would sure be great because, man, it makes me feel horrible. But at the same time, it's almost like the universe, like pointing at me, being like, how often have you been this close? Ah, How often have there been angels like wanting to help you, like trying to get you to that finish line and trying to get you to accomplish your dreams, and yet you bolted, you gave up on them before they could get you there. Um, probably happens more often than we want to admit. But what a hard thing. And
Well,
I'm still making sense of it. It's so difficult.
what a great story. Well, as we kind of wrap up, and we want to keep these to around an hour, hour and a half. As we kind of wrap up, any kind of final thoughts as we finish up with Doctrine and Covenants section 39? Anything you want to touch on there?
I love these last little verses here in 39. We're saying the time is at hand, the day and the hour no man knoweth, but it surely shall come. And he that receiveth these things receiveth me, and they shall be gathered unto me in time and eternity. How great is that? You know, that is what Zion is. The idea of being gathered into the Lord, into his bosom. If you're not one, you're not mine, dropping those veils of illusion that keep us separate and realizing that we're part of not just a huge group here on earth, but a group in the spirit world that's all trying to help us. We could solve every problem that exists within the world if we could just all see each other's thoughts and each other's desires, and the people who had could help those who don't have. We could have Zion now. We could be redeemed now. We could go and be translated like the city of Enoch now. So I guess the whole point of all these things is to just try and give us our dose of juice to remind us those things. Give us a little hope, a little faith.
I think what you said is so powerful. We could be translated now. We could have Zion now. The Lord is trying to do that with us now. He was trying in their day in 1830, and about 200 years later, he's still trying. He's saying, you can have this now. Will you accept it? I love how he says there at the end, behold, I come quickly. I want him to come quickly. I want him to come now. And the sad thing is, Lance, I read a study that lots of Latter-day Saint youth, they're afraid for Jesus to come because we have turned it into this apocalyptic event of tribulation and nightmares and everything else. So they're like, I don't want Jesus to come because I don't want to go through that. Let me just remind everybody, and this is back in Doctrine and Covenants section 29. And I know we just studied this in our Come Follow Me, but let me remind everybody of Doctrine and Covenants section 29, verses 7 and 8. It says, and ye are called to bring to pass the gathering of mine elect, for mine elect hear my voice, and harden not their hearts. Wherefore the decree hath gone forth from the Father. So there is a decree from God that they shall be gathered in unto one place. Gathered in one. That's pretty cool. Upon the face of this land, speaking of the United States, to prepare their hearts and be prepared in all things against the day when tribulation and desolation are sent forth upon the wicked. And I think that's very, very important. If you are righteous, that day will pass over you. Zion will be a protected place. The Savior wants to come to Zion. I think he can only come to Zion. As long as we are in this current state, I don't think he can come here. I don't think we're prepared to receive him. I think we'd probably disintegrate or something if he came today. But we need to prepare a place. And yes, will there be tribulation happening? Probably all over the world, except for where the righteous are. So let's begin building Zion now. Let's build it in our minds. Let's build it with our spouse. Let's build it in our family so that we can build it in the community is definitely the desire of my heart. And I see that here in these sections where the Lord his desire is to build Zion. That's what he wants. He's preparing a people. He's saying, are you willing to listen to my voice? Are you willing to move to Ohio? Are you willing to do some hard things? If you're this James, the Baptist minister, are you willing to, after you get baptized, go out on a mission? And if you're willing to do that, we can receive him. And there's these incredible blessings promised, and it's my prayer and my hope that we can start building Zion now.
Yeah.
Lance, any final thoughts?
I think that wraps it up. What a great message of hope.
Yes. Okay, well, thank you for tuning in to our very first Come Follow Me episode with Lance and Shane. I hope you enjoyed this. Again, these will be released every Monday on Zion Media. That will help you prepare for that Sunday's lesson. We hope to provide you some context so that when you're sitting in your ward building studying these things with the members of your ward, that we can provide something that you can share with them. And hey, if you like this, share it. I mean, share this message. If you liked our style of Come Follow Me, and there are so many good ones out there, but what we promise to deliver, right, Lance, is the meat.
Yeah,
You know
we'll
how
we'll pull
Arby's used
into
to
we'll
say,
pull out of more of those things in the future here. Like we'll get those crazy texts and pull them in.
oh, and we're gonna get into some stuff as we get into the Doctrine and Covenants section 70s and the 80s.
Uh,
There's some serious
one.
meat in there. But you know how Arby's used to say,
Yeah, the meat.
we have the meat,
Yeah.
right? That's what Lance and I are saying is, hey, we have the meat. So if you're looking for a place where you can get more of the meat here on Zion Media and Come Follow Me, that's where we're going to go with this Come Follow Me. Um, and we are excited for future episodes. So thank you for tuning into this one. If you like this video, smash the like button and hey, share it. Share this message. And I love the Doctrine and Covenants and the messages it brings and the church history that we're going to learn about as we do a deep dive and continue to do a deep dive here in Come Follow Me this year in the Doctrine and Covenants. And I pray that all of us will prepare ourselves to have the Lord go before our face. I have a lot of people that say, Shane, I've been going to the temple and I am seeking the face of the Lord. And I'm like, that's amazing. Let me offer some advice to those that are doing that. I would say that when you begin to see the face of the Lord in every person you interact with, that's the first step. And once you can do that, then it's like, instead of seeing the Lord's face, can I hear his voice clearly? Cool. Now I see him in other people, and now I can hear his voice. And once you have mastered those two things, I would then say you are then prepared to see the face of the Lord.
Yeah.
And I promise you, you can.
Yeah.
I promise you, he's here. I promise you, you will see him just like we talked about it here. It's like he sees us. But can we sanctify ourselves so that we can see him? And we do that by doing the things that, like Lance talked about, helping those that are in need. Imagine they're the Lord. Imagine if the Lord was hitchhiking. I love this song. What if God was one of us, you know? And I think about that song often. And I often wonder, I want to make sure that I'm doing the best job I can to see the Lord in other people so that when I see him, I'll recognize him.
Yeah.
So anyways, thank you, Lance, for coming on with me and doing this with me. Thank you for reaching out to me and saying, hey, Shane, the Spirit nudged me. You and I need to do this. We got our white shirts and ties on, especially for you in this, so that even though we're not seminary teachers or BYU religion graduates, we're doing the best job we can to share the restored gospel of Jesus Christ with you. We'll see you guys all next Monday as we cover, what do we cover next week, Lance? Sections 41 through
Yeah. What is it?
43 or 44,
Yeah.
and maybe even through 45. So we're getting into
This is
some,
restoration.
yeah. So what sections are we covering?
Let's see. 41 through 44.
41 through 44. I'm excited to jump into this. So should be a good one. My law,
To govern
what
my
is that?
church.
To govern my church.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about the laws and the
Yeah.
order
Remember the
of
poor.
Christ
That's
Church.
great. Awesome.
Okay, we'll see you guys all next Monday.